Okay, guys, so today we are doing another Shadow House reading because I feel like it. So apparently it's been like 11 months since I did the last one, so I'm sorry about that. I've had a lot going on in these last few months, so I apologize. Anyways, we are on chapter 15. What would a private school need with all this old stuff? Azumi asked as they strolled past yet another elegant sitting room. And where are the classrooms? She and Marcus had seen countless fireplaces, each made out of a different material stone, marble, brick. Their mantelpieces held hurricane lamps with bulbous glass sconces, frames filled with antique photographs, and little porcelain animals. Paintings hung on the walls, portrait after portrait of important looking figures in elegant costumes as well as several ethereal landscapes of the Hudson River Valley. But they hadn't seen anything that looked like a school. Maybe it's all to impress visitors, Market suggested, like for when parents come to see what they're spending their money on. He was keeping quiet about his scholarship. He had never seen a house that looked this luxurious before, not even at the Oberlin campus where he'd performed, and he couldn't believe he was going to get to stay here. He held his hands tightly to keep from drumming the musician's rhythm. Thankfully, Azumi didn't seem to notice. This is more like it, said Azumi, stepping through a doorway into an immense kitchen with numerous cupboards and cabinets. An island in its center looked like an enormous carving block that had been stained dark over the years. Looks big enough to feed several classrooms of kids. Marcus opened one of the cabinets. Yes! He pulled out a few metal trays. Check it out! He showed Azumi the larkspur insignia engraved in the center of each, the same little bird that had been carved into the pillars by the gate. We're not crazy. This is definitely a school. But where is everybody, Azumi? Asked Azumi, tugging at a drawer crammed with beat-up silverware. Marcus opened a door beside an industrial-sized refrigerator. Hey, there's good stuff in here. Hungry? Azumi cracked a smile. A little bit, actually. We're in luck then, Marcus stepped aside. Through the doorway, a large pantry was stocked with boxes of cookies and crackers, cans of tuna and tins of sardines, jars of pickles and preserves. Marcus tore open a bag of potato chips. Tastes pretty fresh. Azumi slid her finger under the flap of a box of chocolate wafers, nibbling one of the cookies. She closed her eyes and sighed. These are amazing. The only thing that might make them better is a cup of my Baba's sencha tea. Your Baba? My grandmother. She lived with us for years before she died. Marcus spoke quickly to cover the awkward pause. We should bring some of this for when we meet up with the others again. Azumi nodded. Together they helped themselves, leaning against the shelves, filling their empty stomachs. After such a weird morning, it felt nice to do something as normal as a snack break. Where are you from again? Marcus asked. Outside of Seattle, said Azumi after swallowing a graham cracker. So why are you here? Marcus asked. Azumi squinted at him. I already told you, for school. I mean, it's so far away from home. We're not that close to Ohio either. Azumi opened another door off the pantry, revealing several rows of long dining tables. High windows near the ceiling allowed daylight to spill inside. Look, this must be the dining hall. Marcus was still looking at her. I came here for music, though. I just thought maybe you'd want to be closer to your family. There have got to be good schools on the West Coast, no? Azumi passed quickly through the room to an open door on the other side. My family's a little strange right now. Strange how? Marcus watched Azumi's face turn red, and he felt bad for asking. He hurried after her. Now they were in a laundry. There was a washer and dryer against the far wall, big enough to climb inside. Uniforms hung from silver racks all around the edges of the room, more evidence that they were on the right track. The insignia they'd found marked on the kitchen trays was also embroidered on a bunch of gray sweater vests. I'm sorry, he said. That was really personal. It's okay, Azumi said, but she didn't look at him. We lost my big sister last year. Oh my gosh, that's terrible. Marcus didn't know what to say. He reached out as if to hug her, then awkwardly dropped his hands. What happened? He asked. I really don't like to talk about it. Izumi shook her hair off her shoulders. But whatever. If we're going to be together at Larkspur, you're going to find out eventually. My sister was being an idiot. She went off into the woods behind my aunt's house in Japan and she disappeared. I had to come back to the States all by myself. She spoke flatly, as if she were talking about what she had for dinner last night. That's horrible, Marcus said. Izumi was looking at him steadily, but he could feel the tension inside her. He felt that if he touched her, she might actually pop like a balloon. Better to change the subject? My mom doesn't like it when I practice cello or piano, he said. The familiar tune drifted through his mind again. She doesn't say so, but I know it bugs her, so I get mad at her sometimes. And my brothers and sister are always around making noise, interrupting me. They hate when I put on Philip Glass or my jazz albums. They only like songs with words. Sometimes I wish they'd just disappear too. Azumi's mouth dropped open. For a moment, Marcus regretted his words, but then she released a loud laugh that reverberated around the laundry room. After a moment, she pulled herself together. That's probably the worst thing anyone has ever said to me, she told him. I didn't mean came out all wrong. You don't really know how to talk to people, do you? Marcus crossed his arms, tapping his fingers on his biceps. He struggled to steady his nervous breath. I never thought about it before. But yeah, I guess music is how I talk. It's how I think. Kids at my old school called me a nerd a lot. That's not necessarily something to be ashamed of, said Izumi. Marcus sighed in relief. Come on, let's keep looking around before it gets too late. Someone's got to be around here somewhere. Across the hallway, they discovered the biggest jaw-dropper of all, a ballroom so immense the white ceiling overhead almost looked like the sky. A line of glass doors stretched across the far wall, covered by gauzy curtains that allowed light to filter in. I'm pretty sure my entire house would fit in here, Marcus said. Mine too, said Izumi. This is really beyond huge. But look, Marcus pointed toward a far corner. A large black piano stood, its cover wide open, as if it had been waiting for him. His heart gave a great leap, and he ran to it, settling himself on the bench and lifting the fallboard. He dragged his fingers silently across the keys and closed his eyes. He pressed down, and a chord sang out, ringing through the chamber like church bells. Finally, he was able to release the tune that had haunted him all morning. Izumi couldn't believe what she was hearing, standing in the doorway of this new room. She watched Marcus move his fingers across the piano's gleaming keyboard. A beautifully complicated melody filled the space and spilled out into the hallway behind her. Marcus had been transported to another realm. It looked like the jitters she'd seen on him had evaporated away. Gone were his shaky hands and drumming fingers. Gone were the grimaces that made him look like he was trying to block out imaginary voices in his head. He was amazing, and if he was a nerd, Izumi knew he was the best kind of nerd. The music washed over her skin like warm water, rinsing away all the bad feelings that had accumulated since her arrival at Larkspur that morning. She could have stood there and listened to him forever. And she might have done just that if she hadn't suddenly heard a voice calling her name from somewhere down the hallway, just outside the door. Izumi! It was long and drawn out, as if coming from very far away. Izumi's body tensed. She moved away from the ballroom and stared into the murky distance of the corridor. Then she looked back at Marcus. He was so wrapped up in his melodies that he didn't even lift his head. Poppy? Izumi called back. Is that you? But she knew that wasn't Poppy. It was the voice, the one that had drawn her outside to the forest behind her house. It was Mariko's voice. Izumi shut her eyes tight, hoping that when she opened them she'd be lying in her bed back home. This entire trip a dream. She wouldn't mind if she were to open her eyes and discover herself to have been sleepwalking again, standing in the woods in the night. But when Izumi's eyes finally fluttered open, she was only deeper down the corridor, farther from Marcus's comforting melody. tied to a knob and was a fluorescent pink. Tied to a doorknob was a fluorescent pink nylon ribbon, just like the one Mariko had followed into the woods, just like the one Azumi had turned away from on the last day she'd seen her sister, fearing what they'd find at the end of it. It was stretched taut and disappeared into the shadows, as if someone had hidden in the distance was pulling on it. The voice came again. "Azumi." "Mariko?" Azumi called back. She couldn't help herself. She knew it was impossible, that Mariko would be here, but with her heart in her throat she stepped forward, reached out, and then clasped the pink nylon ribbon. With a determined shake of her head, she tried to brush away the fear and allowed the ribbon to lead her farther down the hallway and into the shadows. Chapter 16. Upstairs, Poppy was in the office space. Several landscapes hung beside the sketch of the 5 uniformed children. One tall frame that stood between the door and a red curtained window had been draped in a thin black sheet, hiding whatever image was underneath. As curious as Poppy was about the house and her family's connection to it, something deep in her brain told her to steer clear of that one. Desks and filing cabinets filled the room. Papers and folders were stacked on various surfaces, begging to be examined. Poppy imagined herself as a detective in one of her favorite books, Harriet the Spy or Turtle from the Westing game, being clever and picking up details that even adults might miss. Maybe some of Great Aunt Delphina's papers were here. Poppy knew she'd have to be careful not to mix anything up in case her great aunt walked in on her. The top page of the first pile was an itemized invoice from a grocery store in Greencliff to be paid by the Larkspur Home for Children. Larkspur had once been a group home, just like Thursday's Hope. Was it still? Great Aunt Delphina hadn't mentioned anything about that. Poppy swallowed. This was not a good sign. From nearby there came a sound of someone sighing. "Delphina?" Poppy asked, holding her voice steady. No one responded. The invoice was dated from the late 1940s. Poppy flipped through a few more pages. Apparently Larkspur hadn't just been a home, but an orphanage. She fought against tears. Was she just going to be another foster kid to Great Aunt Delphina? She glanced over her shoulder at the sketch by the door. Were the kids in the drawing like her, stuck in the system, waiting for a reprieve? Then Poppy noticed a name at the bottom of the page in her hand that sent a thrill of excitement through her. It was a signature belonging to the orphanage's director, a man named Cyrus Caldwell. Another Caldwell, just like me. She couldn't wait to ask Great Aunt Delphina about the family tree. Feeling almost giddy, Poppy continued combing through the stacks of paper. Most were filled with bookkeeping documents and numbers and data about income and costs, and almost all of them had been signed by Cyrus Caldwell. She opened a drawer in the filing cabinets and found old files about the orphans who had lived at Larkspur. There were small pictures of children attached to the folders. Caldwell's name was all over these too. I wonder how he's related, Poppy thought. The papers had been signed a long time ago. Could the director still be here somewhere? Either way, there were definitely relatives of hers around. Poppy almost slumped with relief. She'd started to think she might have to go back to Thursday's Hope. Poppy continued her search through the filing cabinet, hoping to find more about the director or her great aunt, then turned to the desks by a long row of squat windows at the far end of the room. A single desk there was marked differently from the others. More organized, a couple of folders thick with papers rested on a green blotter. The top one had a tab that someone had written "Specials" in bright red pencil, so the word practically leapt off the manila paper. Specials? Poppy wondered aloud. What are specials? Before she had time to look closer, she heard a voice murmuring somewhere nearby. Poppy glanced up from the folder, trying to pinpoint where it was coming from. It sounded like a young girl. Turning from the desk, she realized that the room was L-shaped, and there was a section she'd overlooked before. The voice was coming from around the corner. "Hello?" Poppy called. She closed the specials folder and slipped it into her bag. As she walked toward the voice, she could make out some of the girl's whispered words. The breadcrumbs through the forest. When Poppy was very young, the story of Hansel and Gretel had given her nightmares. It had never been the witch in the candy house who had frightened her, but instead the parents who had heartlessly sent their children into the woods to die. Side note, if you want to know about the original Hansel and Gretel, I have that on my channel, and you can listen to me reading it. It's in 2 pieces, but it's there. So, if you want to know the original story of Hansel and Gretel, it is on my channel. I can put it in the description if needed. Holding her breath, Poppy peered down around the bend. The midday sun shone brightly onto a single high-backed chair that faced the windows. The chair was so tall she couldn't see the girl who was sitting there. Gretel didn't waste a moment, the voice continued. Poppy's shyness suddenly returned. She locked her knees and pressed her bag to her side. She pushed the old witch into the oven, slammed the door shut, and then turned the latch, locking her in. A howl filled the cottage with a rage nearly hot enough to melt the candy walls. "Tell me, missus," said Gretel, smiling, "is the oven hot enough to cook meat now?" Then she turned toward the cage made of bones where her brother had crouched, watching her with both wonder and terror. The room fell silent, and Poppy's skin prickled. "Hello," she called again. The person in the high-backed chair shifted. The chair swiveled around slowly, and Poppy found herself staring into the blank eyes of a girl in a light gray cat mask. She flinched with surprise. On the mask, the cat's eyebrows were lifted high, as if Poppy shouldn't have dared interrupt the fairy tale. Poppy tried again. Do you live here? Can you help me find Delphenia?" Poppy trembled. She recognized the cat from the charcoal sketch that Ashley had almost destroyed. The girl in the chair also wore the familiar dark skirt, white blouse, and gray sweater. Long brown hair fell from the top of her head. Few stray strands caught in the edges of the mask's holes. This couldn't be the same girl from the drawing, could it? And why wasn't she saying a word? On the floor by the wall sat the girl's audience, a group of dolls propped up against the baseboard. All of them were damaged in some way, disfigured. Some of them were burnt, their faces mottled and blackened. Others were missing limbs and blank-eyed. One of the larger ones was slumped over, with a smashed head, a gaping hole in its fragile porcelain skull. The girl in the cat mask followed Poppy's gaze down to a pile of dolls for a moment, before whipping her head back toward Poppy. "I'm sorry," Poppy said, horrified that some of her revulsion might have shown on her face. She knew better than most what strange things could become treasures. But then the girl stood, and Poppy retreated into silence. The girl bent down, gathered up her dolls, then stepped toward Poppy, her eye holes black and empty. "You came," said the girl, her muffled voice the perfect combination of Gretel and the witch. "You actually came." "Wait, are you the one who invited me?" Poppy asked, her voice barely a whisper, her heart pounding. The girl emitted a low laugh that went on for a long time. That's as long as you'll get. Then suddenly she shrieked. The noise was so unexpected that it startled Poppy into a strangled scream too. The girl fell. The girl kicked the high-backed chair away with startling force. It fell to the floor with a hard whack. Then she stepped forward to Poppy again. Poppy backed around the corner. She was enveloped by a strong smell of smoke, and for a moment she imagined that it had followed her out of the girl's story, as if heat from that witch's oven had become magically real. But then hot air breezed against her back. A moment later, bright, flickering flame burst to light behind her. Poppy screamed in earnest now. The office was ablaze. Chapter 17. All of the desks and cabinets, the folders and files that Poppy had just searched erupted into flame. The fire climbed the walls, turning the wallpaper black and the paintings crisp and crackling. In the furious heat, the black cloth that had covered the tallest frame rose up in a hot gust, then slid to the floor where the fire devoured it, revealing an enormous mirror. Poppy briefly thought of the girl right before the mirror's glass fractured with a crack as loud as a gunshot, creating a spider web of breaks that stretched across its tarnished surface. For a moment, Poppy knew she had to be imagining everything. There is no fire, she thought. There is no cat girl. This is all in your head. You really are crazy. They're going to lock you in a dark room forever and ever. No friends, no family, no mirrors or books, just you and your stupid, crazy brain. Then something grabbed hold of her hair and yanked. Poppy fell backward with a scream and landed on the floor. The cat-faced girl stared down at her above the crackling of the flames as it sounded as if she was laughing. This was real. Poppy scrambled away and leapt to her feet. The blaze was closing in on the two of them. "What are you doing?" Poppy yelled at the cat-faced girl. Poppy ran across the room, leaping over small licks of flame, but when she yanked on the knob, the door wouldn't budge. Smoke obscured the room behind her, shrouding the cat-faced girl in swirling gray. Fire swelled into the room, and the heat grew strong. Poppy struggled to inhale, but the heat seared her throat, and she choked. Out of nowhere, Miss Tate blinked into her head, standing before the girls in the common area at Thursday's Hope, instructing them on what to do in case of a fire. Get low to the ground to avoid the smoke. Poppy dropped to her knees, covering her mouth. Know your closest exits. Exits, Poppy forced herself to think. There was a window next to the broken mirror. The red velvet curtain was roaring with flames, but the glass was clear. Poppy grabbed the metal chair at the desk. It was hot to the touch, but she gritted her teeth against the pain. She raised it above her head and threw it as hard as she could at the window. A perfect shot. But to her horror, the chair simply bounced away. "Dylan!" she screamed, coughing, sweat running down her face and neck, drenching her t-shirt. "Marcus! Azumi! Help me!" The fire was so loud now, the blood pounding so hard in her eardrums, that even if any of them answered, she wouldn't hear them. The smoke across the room seemed to part like a veil. A figure stepped into the flames, the girl in the cat mask. Poppy froze, unsure again if her eyes were playing tricks. The fire seemed to dance around the cat girl. The girl walked slowly forward, clutching her collection of monstrous dolls and staring at Poppy with malice. "You don't scare me," she shouted. She hated that her voice sounded so trembling and weak. The girl tilted her head as if to ask, "Don't I?" She glided slowly through the growing flames toward the spot where Poppy crouched. "You came. You actually came." The wallpaper beneath the sketch of the Mass 5 was bubbling. Smoke and steam billowed out from the seams, and Poppy gagged at the fumes. The fire was inside the wall now. Soon it would rush to the lower floors. Poppy knew the entire structure could collapse. Know your closest exits. Fierce anger filled her, the same anger that had made her search for her file in Miss Tate's office. If there's no way out, make one. Poppy stared into the shattered mirror. Her reflection was a fractured, frightening mess. But it wasn't her reflection she was looking for. "You were trying to warn me not to come here," she yelled to the girl, her girl. Poppy's voice barely audible over the roar of the fire. "I'm sorry I didn't listen. But please, please, if you can hear me, help me." The cat girl was now only a few steps away. She held out her dolls as if to taunt Poppy with what was about to happen. "If there's no way out, make one." A slight flicker moved inside the broken mirror. The girl, she'd come. The mirror fractured again. A horizontal line broke through the web pattern over Poppy's reflection. Then two more cracks formed on either side of Poppy's face. Turning around, Poppy saw the fissures cracking through the wall she was huddled against. The cracks in the mirror were duplicating themselves on the wall behind her. The girl in the cat mask howled as Poppy slammed her weight against the wall. When Poppy drew back and hit it with her shoulder again, the wall swung open like a gate. A moment later, Poppy had collapsed out into the hallway inside the burning room. The mirror exploded, shards of broken glass hurtling into the fire. The passage through the wall disappeared with a blink, and Poppy found herself staring at an unblemished hallway. Poppy leaned back, gasping for breath. She closed her eyes, then opened them and looked again. Nothing. And no burns on her, no hint of smoke. Crazy Poppy. Slamming her hands against the wall behind her, Poppy shoved the taunting voices away. But that only left her with her own voice ringing in her head, and she didn't know if she liked that any better. This is all a lie. The letter, the invitation, great Aunt Delphine, something had wanted Poppy to come to Larkspur, but it hadn't been some long-lost family member. This place wasn't going to be her home. No one here was going to accept her, love her, adopt her. She fought against the rising flood of tears, her eyes red and prickling. Poppy felt like one of the dolls that the girl in the cat mask had been telling a story to, the one that had been gutted, its stuffing removed. She struggled to stay on her feet and angrily wiped her face clean. Then Poppy heard the sound of footsteps racing toward her. Chapter 18. Poppy faced the footsteps, swinging her satchel from her shoulder and holding it in her hands like a weapon, until she saw the face of the person rushing toward her. She was so relieved she nearly dropped her bag. "Dylan!" she cried out. "Nope," said the boy, "but close." His eyes were wide and his chest heaving. "Dash, what are you doing up here?" "Where's my brother?" Dash looked almost as scared as she felt. "We decided to split up." She glanced over her shoulder toward the office. "We need to find the others and then get out of here. You saw something too?" Nodding, Poppy fought tears. "This is all a lie." "I was waiting in the foyer," Dash said, just like Dylan told me to, "but I heard a noise. When I turned, I saw that kid in the rabbit mask watching me from the top of the stairs. He ran off, so I followed him up here. I don't know what's going on." Poppy couldn't hold back. "I was in an office. There was a fire. A girl in a cat mask attacked me. I thought she was going to kill me. I ran, but the door was locked, and the window wouldn't break. But the fire went out, which makes no sense, and we have to go." She shifted past him, waving for him to follow. "We have to find the others and go." "Not that way," he said. "What do you mean?" She heard her voice rising. "The stairs are just down the hall." Dash turned his head to show her the nasty welt on his cheek. Poppy hissed in shock and sympathy. "The kid I followed attacked me too. Managed to pull off his mask." Dash trembled and briefly closed his eyes. There was black goo spilling out of his mouth and down his neck. He was soaked with it. He swallowed. I don't think we should go back that way." Poppy met his eyes gravely. "The stairs are back that way. I haven't seen another way out." Dash peered past her into the darkness stretching down the hallway behind her. "Fine, but if we come across another one of those kids wearing masks, I hope you know how to fight." "I'm learning," Poppy said, leading the way, relieved to finally put some distance between herself and that office. Moments later, not far down the hall, they came upon the rabbit mask lying on the floor, lit by the sunlight from an open doorway. It wasn't anything elaborate, just a thin sheet of plastic that had been pressed by a mold at a factory somewhere. But the eyes were wide and dark, their edges marked with deep laugh lines. In the pale light from the nearby doorway, they looked hollow, black. The mouth was stretched in a wide and grotesque smile with a tiny slit cut in the plastic so its wearer could breathe. There were dried black flecks splattered around this small hole. "You sure you want to touch that?" Poppy asked as Dash reached for it. Dash glanced at her. "You can't just leave it here. The others won't believe my story." Poppy understood what he'd meant. "Dylan won't believe my story." Dash turned the mask over. The bottom half was dripping with black goo. Poppy gasped and covered her mouth. "Ugh, nasty." "Never mind," Dash said, and dropped it, wiping his hands on his shorts. Poppy noticed the red markings on the inside of the mask, higher up, closer to the rabbit's left ear. Block letters in red marker spelled ALOYSIUS. "What's this?" she asked, pointing. "I don't know, and I don't want to," Dash said. "I just want to get out of here." They continued on toward the staircase. "Dylan?" Dash called out. His voice echoed back at him, but no one answered. As they went around the next corner, Poppy yelped. Just ahead, lying on the floor in a sunbeam, was the same rabbit mask, still looking up with its blank eye holes. "What's going on?" she asked. "Crazy Poppy." "Dash, you see that too, right?" "I don't understand," Dash said slowly. He looked close to tears. "Dylan!" he called out again. He gathered himself together and quietly said, as if to himself, It's gotta be one of Dylan's tricks. He's messing with us. After everything we've just seen, you think your brother is responsible for this." "I don't know what to think," Dash yelled. "I don't even know which direction to take." "Let's just keep going," said Poppy, but her feet felt unsteady. They walked on for a few minutes, far longer than it should have taken to find the staircase, and suddenly they were back in the same spot. Panic gripped Poppy's lungs and she felt like she couldn't breathe. Dash rushed up and stomped on the rabbit mask until the plastic was smashed flat. The hallway shuddered and groaned. Dash grabbed Poppy's hands and brought her low to the floor as if they were bracing for an earthquake. "It's not happy that you did that," Poppy whispered. "What's not happy?" Poppy didn't want to say it out loud. "I don't know." "The house?" Inches away, the flattened rabbit mask popped back into shape. Poppy and Dash leapt to their feet and bolted around the corner and past the rabbit mask. There they found a new hallway, one they hadn't seen before. They ran and ran, looking for new doorways, new rooms, new details they hadn't encountered, anything to get them out of this strange loop. Poppy yanked Dash to a halt. "You hear that?" she asked, her chest heaving. "Music! Someone's playing a piano. Let's follow it. But what if it's... Let's go. Just go." Poppy and Dash raced around a bend, and the landing at the top of the stairs finally appeared. "Yes!" she shouted, feeling like she'd just won a marathon. Dash bolted past her down the steps toward the foyer. "Hurry!" he shouted. Poppy didn't need him to tell her twice. When the two of them finally made it to the bottom of the stairs, a voice called out from up above, "Dash, wait!" Turning, they found Dylan standing on the landing, wide-eyed and unsteady. He looked like he was about to faint. "Oh my goodness," Poppy said, shaking her head, confused. "I totally forgot Dylan was there too." "Help me," said Dash. Together, Poppy and Dash raced back up the stairs toward his brother. Chapter 19. Marcus was lost in an ocean of sound. The piano melody swelled as he danced his fingers across the keys and pressed his feet against the pedals. Marcus could hear the musician's tune a millisecond before he brought it to life. It felt as if they were playing a duet. The ballroom where he sat was a hazy memory. His head was filled with pictures of home, of kind friends and family, of the scent of Duke's wet fur after a walk in the rain, of the sound of the calliope during the county fairs on Labor Day weekends, of his mother and his siblings sitting in the darkness of the auditorium's first rows, memories that were now so entangled with the musician's tunes that Marcus couldn't distinguish one sense from the other. That serenity was shattered when a group burst through the ballroom doorway shouting for his attention. Marcus lifted his hands from the keys and opened his eyes, feeling as if he'd been bumped out of a dream. Poppy and Dash were struggling to carry Dylan between them. His arms were stretched between their shoulders, his feet practically dragging. Marcus stood up, shocked, pushing the bench back with a squeal that mixed with the reverberation left over from his shattered melody. "What's wrong with him?" "We don't know," Dash said, his eyes huge with worry. "He practically fainted on the stairs again. This is all my fault." Dylan fell to his knees, holding his head, as the last of the echo seeped into the woodwork and faded away. He finally looked up. "I'm sorry," he said, with no trace of his former cockiness. "I don't know what happened to me." "I told you to come find me if you felt strange," Dash said, crouching beside him. Dylan winced. "I didn't feel strange until I found you, so please, stop shouting at me." Where were you guys?" Marcus asked. "Upstairs," said Poppy. "The music led us down to you." "There were other people here," said Dylan. "Kids wearing masks. I think they're messing with us, playing tricks." He glanced at Dash. "You saw one too?" asked Dash. Dylan nodded, swallowing hard as if he were fighting nausea. Dash's mouth flattened. "The rabbit-faced boy we saw earlier The rabbit-faced boy we saw earlier attacked me, and Poppy said a cat girl came after her. We need to get out of here. Poppy jumped in. Upstairs I found an old office filled with files. I think this building was an orphanage once. All the paperwork for decades was signed by its director. He has the same last name as me, Caldwell. One more reason to just run, said Dash, edging toward the row of windows on the other side of the room. Come on. This is weird, said Marcus, crossing his arms. Kind of unbelievably weird. He wished they would leave him alone so he could sit down again at the piano and play. He wanted that warm feeling back, the pleasant memories, the safety of it all. Maybe everyone should just calm down and talk this out. It sounds very confusing. But that wasn't even the weirdest part, said Dash. There was a fire, and Poppy got locked in the room, and then... Wait, said Dylan. There's a fire upstairs? Not anymore, said Poppy. It went out. Marcus raised an eyebrow. And then, Dash went on, when we were trying to find our way back to the foyer, the hallways kept moving. The hallways? Marcus crossed his arms. I'm sorry, that's not possible. Dash looked at Poppy. Am I lying? Poppy shook her head, blushing. She followed Dash to the line of windows. Do you think this could all be part of the horror movie? Dylan asked. His voice was low and strained. No, said Dylan. And you don't either. There's something seriously wrong with this place. Dash made a beeline toward the French doors. I am seriously creeped out. It's time to leave. I don't care what we all came here for. Agreed, said Poppy. Poppy exhaled on a shaky breath. There's nothing here for any of us. My great aunt, Marcus's school, the film shoot. It's all just... She hesitated, glancing around the ballroom. Where is Azumi? Marcus looked behind them. She was just here, wasn't she? Not when we came in, said Dash. When did you last see her? I'm not sure. Marcus walked to the doorway and peered into the hall, glancing in both directions. I was caught up playing the piano. I thought she was listening to me. How could you let her out of your sight? Dylan demanded. Were you really that wrapped up in playing a stupid piano? She's a big girl, said Marcus. She can do what she wants. Poppy sighed. Not in this house she can't. Here we're like mice in a maze. It's not my fault she's gone. Dash grabbed the handles of the French doors. You guys can hang around waiting for Azumi, but I'm out. When he pulled down the handles, they wouldn't budge. He struggled for a few moments before backing away, looking for a latch or a lock that he could release. What about Dell? Asked Dylan, coming up behind Dash. Didn't you hear Poppy? Dash shouted, moving toward the piano. She said Dell doesn't exist, and I believe she's right. He dragged the piano several feet back toward the door. Poppy's eyes were wide and scared. I tried to smash a window upstairs with a chair, but it wouldn't break, she whispered. Apparently that was a whisper. Dash tossed it at the glass anyway. It bounced off, clattering to the floor with a raucous echo. Marcus ran back into the room, shocked. See? Said Poppy. I can't believe this. Dash tried to toss the bench several more times, but the door remained intact. But the email, Dylan said quietly. The voicemail. We heard his voice. Nobody paid him any attention, even as he stomped his foot. Am I invisible? We came in through the front door, said Marcus. He tried, forcing himself to remain calm, but the fright of the others was slowly infecting him. We could leave that way, too. I don't think it'll be any different, said Poppy. She seemed to be fighting against tears. How would we even find our way back there? Asked Dash. Marcus shrugged. By going to look for it? You didn't see what we saw upstairs, said Dash. The hallways were moving. The whole house keeps changing shape. The group stared at Dash for a moment. If it doesn't want us to leave, I don't think we can. What do you mean if it doesn't want us to leave? Said Dylan. How can a house not want us to leave? We have to find Azumi before we can do anything else, said Poppy, heading toward the hallway. Right? I mean, maybe she'll already have found a way out. Let's try for the front door, said Marcus evenly. Maybe we'll run into Azumi. We can figure out what to do from there. I already know what we can do from there, said Dash, making his way back across the room in a huff. We can go. He took his brother's arm and disappeared into the hallway. Okay, guys, so that's it for this video. If you like this video, I have other book reading videos on my channel. Yeah. So thank you for watching. Subscribe if you like book videos, fashion videos, and the occasional cat video. And give this a thumbs up if you liked it. And yeah, have a good day or night.